Hey Guardians, in today's video we'll be going over the top 10 weapons in Destiny 2 currently, today, at this minute. Although the Crucible Bungie development team has confirmed that on March 27th, the Crucible is going to be seeing a slight overhaul to weapons and so forth, so maybe the point of making this video is a little bit moot, but I still feel like it preserves the history of Destiny 2, where it's been and where it's going. So with that out of the way, and with no further ado, let's start the countdown. In the number 10 spot, we have the Traveler's Judgment 5. Now, the interesting part about the Omelon Burst Sidearm being in the number 10 spot was that the previous video I made, the previous top 10, I put the Last Hope at number 1. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. And I mean, not much PvP changes have actually happened since release of Destiny 2, so it's very surprising that on our own, the players themselves have changed the meta. In the last balancing patch, Bungie changed the Omelon burst sidearms to delay by 1 extra frame per burst. Without editing software, you can't tell that the change has actually occurred, it's very subtle. So while the Last Hope is definitely a force to be reckoned with, the Curse of Osiris DLC has brought so many new weapons, and the players themselves have discovered how to use so many weapons better that it just gets knocked off the top 10 list completely and is replaced by Traveler's Judgment 5. So comparing apples to apples, Traveler's Judgment 5 to the Last Hope is superior with the fact that it has ricochet rounds, which acts as an invisible rangefinder, which reduces the damage drop-off and lets you extend the range of a Omelon burst sidearm. But you gotta ask yourself, why do you want to extend the range of a sidearm when you have another primary? The best response to this would be to pair an Omelon sidearm with the scout rifle, like going, let's just say Mida multi-tool and Last Hope. Then in that case, yes, extending the range of your Omelon burst sidearm makes sense. Even with this in mind, I still consider the Traveler's Judgment 5 to edge out the Last Hope on the sheer fact that its perks makes it so much more consistent in its intended range. So what are the perks? Let's go over them. The main perk of the Traveler's Judgment is Head Seeker, which means that if you hit body shots and then a headshot, it increases the precision damage, making it more consistent. It has armor-piercing rounds, accurized rounds, and steady rounds. Ideally, dependent on what kinetic weapon you pair this with, you want to run it one of two ways. Either go for max stability, so it's very consistent up close, or go for max range, where Head Seeker will help make up for missing a precision shot or two. Considering that this gun is a sidearm, it's intended to use almost at melee range, which is exactly what you should do. Pair it with the Sentinel. Shoot a burst sidearm, get a melee, get an overshield, get your health back, pair it with Arc Strider, melee somebody, get your health back, pair it with Voidwalker, shoot a burst of Omelon sidearm, punch them, proc Devour, switch to your other kinetic primary, start mowing people down, get your health back. You can see how the synergy works here. Omelon burst sidearm, melee. And even when melees aren't an option, it still absolutely shreds in close quarters, and might get beat by certain submachine guns at certain ranges, but even then, just hit your shots and it will shred people in close quarters. But if close quarters isn't really your thing, then stick around for number 9. In the number 9 spot, we have Purpose, Mannanan, and Mida, a 3-way tie of 3 amazing scout rifles. Let's start with the perks. The main perk of both Purpose and Mannanan, being separated by either the kinetic or energy slot, is Explosive Payload. Projectiles create an area of effect detonation on impact and flinch the hell out of your target, and since they're explosive rounds, you could consider that if you miss them when in the air but it hits the floor near them, it still hits damage, and if somebody's hiding around cover, very close to a wall, you can shoot the floor and still splash damage them, preventing healing. Since Purpose is a Trials of the 9 weapon, it contains Slide Shot, which is a perk that when sliding, it partially reloads the weapon's magazine and temporarily boosts range and stability. Although this perk sounds great, I much prefer Hipfire Grip. The other option for perk, Hipfire Grip, increases accuracy and stability when firing from the hip. While this may not sound like the smartest thing to do with a scout rifle, it certainly makes sense when you consider the archetype, the explosive payload perk, and a couple other factors that hip firing just benefit you, which namely is, when you hip fire, your strafe speed is increased because your strafe speed is slowed otherwise when you aim down sights. So a faster strafe speed means you can dodge more bullets. Also, if you're not aiming down sights, then your radar is open, meaning you're more apt to be aware when somebody is flanking you. When you aim down sights in Destiny, it increases the zoom, which reduces damage drop-off. So clearly when you hip fire, the damage drop-off is terrible. But this gun has explosive rounds. The explosive portion of the bullet is always the same no matter the range. The bullet portion of the explosion always drops off. But since this is a scout rifle, In the ranges that you want to hipfire, you never have to worry about damage drop-off. All three guns, Purpose, Mannanan, and Mida, have an inherent lightweight frame. That's the intrinsic perk. And a lightweight frame is an invisible +2 to mobility. So let's say that you had 8 mobility and are using a lightweight weapon. Well, then it's like you had 10 mobility. But if you had 10 mobility and use a lightweight weapon, it doesn't stack over, so it doesn't create 12 mobility. You're still stuck at 10. But the bottom line here is, extra strafe speed is good, and if you have the hipfire perk, it's like having the craziest strafe at all times. But let's say you wanted to use a different kinetic weapon and still have a scout rifle. Well, then use the Mannanan, which has the same explosive payload perk, a alloy magazine, so that when it's empty it reloads faster. I don't recommend that unless you do PvE, and steady rounds, which is my PvP choice. Even though it decreases the range, don't worry about it, because it has an impulse scope or a candle scope and explosive rounds. But if explosive rounds aren't your cup of tea, then use the exotic kinetic Mida multi-tool, which has the third eye perk, which means that you can always see the radar even when you aim down sights, and it has high caliber rounds to flinch people, and even then it stacks with a legendary energy weapon, the Mida mini tool, to extend that invisible +2 mobility to an invisible +3 mobility. So as you can imagine, the entire playstyle behind these 3 scouts is that you need to be at a range, you need to have a sight line, and you need to strafe. If you're doing the 3 of those things, you are going to be very, very, very successful when using these scouts versus anything else in the game at long range. In the number 8 spot, we have yet another Curse of Osiris weapon, the Jack King Queen 3, a hand cannon in the energy slot. As for its perks, it has Pulse Monitor, which auto-reloads when you're critically wounded. It has Ricochet Rounds, which is an invisible rangefinder, and the bullets ricochet, Tactical Mag, or Accurized Rounds. But you want to go Ricochet Rounds. Trust me, I've done the research, I have all the charts, I've tested it against other hand cannons. Ricochet Rounds is king. For comparison's sake, it kills a meter further in 4 shots than Better Devils. It kills further than Better Devils. And to top it off, it's a lightweight frame weapon, which means that you can opt for 8 mobility, have that invisible +2, and then have a hand cannon strafe that is like having 10 mobility. I'll quickly explain the differences in archetype between hand cannons, namely the 140s and the 150s. The Jack King Queen is a 150 RPM energy hand cannon, which means that when you shoot somebody in the body, it does 40 damage. When you shoot somebody in the head, 60 damage. Now compared to something like the Allegro or Minuet, which is the same thing in the energy slot except 140 RPM, it hits 61 to the head or 41 to the body, just an additional 1 damage per shot. While this doesn't sound significant, the extra 4 damage from a headshot body shot combo does change dependent on your target's resilience. So basically, if you hate 150 RPM hand cannon users, then run 10 resilience, because that forces them to have to hit an extra headshot. Instead of 2 body shots, 2 headshots for the kill, it is now 3 headshots, 1 body shots. Shots. It's not plural. Since the Jack Queen King punches way out of its weight class, I recommend pairing it with a submachine gun like the Antiope. I'm calling it the Antiope. But if it's a long-range map, like let's say Legion's Gulch, then pair it with the scout rifle, maybe even one of the ones I previously mentioned, like the Purpose or the Mida. In summary, this is a fast-firing hand cannon with ricochet rounds, which allows it to punch way out of its weight class and range, and it doesn't really matter if you use a controller or a mouse and keyboard. This hand cannon feels great. In the number 7 spot, we have a 2-way tie between the Hero's Burden and the Stochastic variable. The Hero's Burden, which is obtained from the Iron Banner, sports the perk Threat Detector, which increases reload stability and handling when enemies are in close proximity, which is always when you're using a submachine gun. This perk by itself changes this submachine gun from meh average stats to imagine that the reload stability and handling are severely buffed. And when you look at it that way, this thing is amazing. There's also another key feature of Threat Detector that I want to keep secret but will tell you because I like my subscribers. Threat Detector lets you know when somebody is near you. Why might that be useful? Well, maybe, I don't know, Bungie might be removing the radar in Trials and Competitive. And Threat Detector not only tells you when somebody is near you, but tells you how many people are near you. So even when playing with radar enabled and you notice a red ping in the right corner of your radar, and you can't tell how many people are around the corner, well just pull out your Hero's Burden, and if it says Threat Detector ×3, then run the hell away because you're not going to win a 1v3. In addition to Threat Detector, it has high caliber rounds, which people are known for over-exaggerating in the community for flinch, but it increases the range, so I recommend it. Drop mag, not so much, you'll run out of ammo. Not to mention that threat detector makes reloading a non-factor altogether, and as for scope choices, pick what you're comfortable with. Now you'll notice that its archetype, its intrinsic perk, is Adaptive Frame, which adds +1 to body shot or headshot damage compared to lightweight weapons of the same RPM. What this translates to in game is overall consistency when comboing a melee with submachine gun shots, so you get to fire one less shot. May not sound like much, but considering how easy it is to trade with melees, every advantage counts. And because of the extra damage, it's just more consistent in general. But to make the most out of your strafe, you have to go for 10 mobility, which is why Stochastic Variable is on here. Stochastic Variable, which is obtained by future War Cult pledging, is a lightweight frame submachine gun. And I know I just talked about the adaptive frame having an advantage over lightweight submachine guns, but Stochastic Variable also has Phase Mag, which increases damage by lowering the fire rate from 900 RPM to 600 RPM. So it gets the best of both worlds. It gets the added benefit of being lightweight intrinsic with the benefit of being 600 RPM. Combined with the tap the trigger perk, which increases stability and accuracy on initial trigger pull, I could see you using it with a controller or a keyboard and mouse with very little discrepancy between the two. And my roommate just turned on the shower, so if you hear water in the pipes, I'm sorry, nothing I can do about that, but I'm going to continue soldiering on, finishing this video. Thank you for watching. As for what to pair with either of these submachine guns, I like to use a hand cannon. A very long-range hand cannon that I will mention way later in the video. You could also go for a pulse rifle or a scout rifle depending on the map and what your teammates are using. Your avenue to success when using a submachine gun is to be in close quarters, just like the Omalon sidearm. You gotta be real close. And if you want to combo melees, I suggest the Adaptive Frame Hero's Burden, and if you want to just duel people, I suggest the lightweight Stochastic Variable. In the number 6 spot, we have the Dire Promise. The Dire Promise, obtained from Dead Orbit, is a 150 RPM kinetic hand cannon with the perk Triple Tap, which landing precision hits returns a round to the magazine, Steady Rounds, which decreases range while improving stability, Pendant Mag, which gives it more bullets in the magazine, and a choice of 3 sights. It's also a lightweight weapon, so consider that it is invisible, +2 to mobility. When using the max range settings on the Dire Promise, it still kills 4 meters in a 4-tap behind Better Devils, or even 5 meters when compared to Jack King Queen. Jack Queen King. But range is not the strength of the Dire Promise. It's the fact that it has virtually no recoil no matter how you run the gun. This is why my friends group have dubbed it the Dire Spammer. It doesn't matter if you use keyboard and mouse, it doesn't matter if you use controller. It has virtually no recoil. And in the background gameplay, you see me using it with Lucky Pants to give it actually no recoil. And I was on a controller. So I'm sure some of you are wondering why Dire Promise makes the list and Midnight Q doesn't. Well, Midnight Q does help you win a 2v1 because it reduces the second kill by a bullet once Rampage is active. The Midnight Q has a hell of a lot of recoil compared to Dire Promise. And at the end of the day, it's all about getting that initial kill, not necessarily the follow-up. Like, just look at that background gameplay. This thing is the quintessential dueling hand cannon. If you want to beat someone else in a 1v1 hand cannon duel, pick the Dire Promise. Now, this gun is best paired with literally anything in the game except maybe a medium range weapon like an auto rifle or another hand cannon. In the competitive scene of Destiny 2, you see a lot of Dire Promise, and they're typically paired with a Hero's Burden or a Darkest Before. This again, the reason for the overabundance of Dire Promise is simply because it is very easy and manageable to use. So what this hand cannon has going for it is consistency. But for those of you who want to commit a lot more time to getting good, those who never miss your hand cannon shots can use one of the two-way tie hand cannons in the number 5 spot, the Crimil's Dagger or the Home for the Lost. Out of all the hand cannons in Destiny 2, Crimil's Dagger has the furthest range by far. No pun intended. It is virtually a pocket sniper rifle. So much so that I did a separate video on it that went over it in extreme detail, so if you want to know more about the hand cannon, check the link in the description. But to cover the basics, Crimil's Dagger has so much range that on some maps, it has too much range, to the point where it doesn't change the shots to kill, which is why 2 hand cannons tie for this spot. On maps like Endless Vale, where Crimil's Dagger has too much range, you might want to opt for Home for the Lost, which has Quick Draw, which removes one of the weaknesses of the 110 archetype of hand cannons, which is handling. Home for the Lost has maxed out handling because of the quick draw perk. So now that I explained the basics, let's go into the perks. Crimil's Dagger has opening shot, which improves range and accuracy on the opening shot of attack, which gives an invisible +5 damage to damage drop off. So if any other hand cannon would hit 65 in that scenario, Crimil's Dagger on the opening shot would hit 70 damage. In addition to this, I also suspect that opening shot gives an increased in-air accuracy potential, but I'm not sure. There's not really a good way to prove that. It also sports armor-piercing rounds, which over-penetrates targets, or drop mag, which compensates for the low reload speed. I recommend armor-piercing rounds to go for max range to turn it into a pocket sniper rifle. Home for the Lost, on the other hand, has the quick draw perk, which means it can be drawn unbelievably fast and boosts the handling speed. So imagine that the handling gets a significant boost, almost max handling. It has alloy magazine and steady rounds, but you probably want to opt for alloy magazine since it doesn't decrease the range. Both hand cannons sport an aggressive frame on the intrinsic perk, which means that the bullets are considered high caliber. Drew, you want some of this too?
Sure.
Fuck your shield.
Push them everywhere.
As you can see, the 110 archetype of hand cannons are extremely rewarding for headshots. They give you pretty much the fastest primary time to kill, that is within medium distance. But if you miss a headshot, well, you better hope the target has low resilience, because with 0 resilience, you can 2-tap them to the head and 1 to the body. But most people will run higher resilience than this, so you would have to land 3 consecutive headshots, which is asking a lot. But at the end of the day, if you can hit your shots, this is the best tool for the job. In the number 4 spot, we have a two-way tie between the number and positive outlook. Let's quickly go over the perks. Both are a 450 RPM auto rifle. The number has high impact reserves, which means rounds at the end of the magazine deal more damage. It also has extended magazine, but why use extended magazine when ricochet rounds act as an invisible rangefinder and lower the magazine, making it easier to proc high impact reserves. Also has a flashlight which highlights targets. On the other hand, Positive Outlook sports Kill Clip, which is after reloading after a kill, it grants 33% extra damage. Accurized rounds lets it fire longer distances, and armor piercing rounds over penetrates targets, so if people stack on top of each other, you can get multi-kills. Another benefit of Positive Outlook is the fact that it has a long zoom scope, which means on controller, you get sticky aim assist and even further ranges.
I might try down a little bit, place my shots effectively. And then it'll help.
There it is. I disagree with that one. 100% confirmed. There it is. See ya, Uriel's gift. You tried. As you can tell by the background footage, both guns absolutely rip, and this is because of their archetype. The 450 RPM Precision inherent perk lets the recoil be very controllable, down the middle, up and down, no horizontal. This means that you should be landing majority precision shots since the recoil is very manageable. When a target's resilience is at 0, if you hit all headshots, it can match the time to kill of a 110 RPM hand cannon, which is excellent, 1.07. But because of the nerf to 450 RPM auto rifles, it's harder to do that, because they decrease the precision damage by 1 and increase the body damage by 1. So although you can have a better ease of use, you have a less optimal TTK. There are a couple clever ways around maintaining an optimal TTK. Number 1, use the number. Once you get into the high impact reserves, if you land all headshots, you can kill higher armor, higher resilience opponents by landing all headshots in 1.07 seconds, the fastest. Another method is to use the Foe Tracer helmet, which means when a target is weak, you do extra damage. So as long as you're landing all headshots, the extra damage from Foe Tracer will allow you to achieve that 1.07 on targets with slightly higher resilience than 0. But to be an absolute bastard, use both the number and Foe Tracer, and you can map people with the number, because the number has ricochet rounds as well. So you get the Foe Tracer bonus, the High Impact Reserve bonus, and the Ricochet round bonus, and you're basically using a scout rifle. This is why Uriel's gift will never be featured on one of my top 10s when the number exists, when Positive Outlook exists. As far as weapon pairings go, I recommend a long-range scout rifle of any kind, or the Antiope submachine gun, or any sidearm that you feel comfortable with. Rat King is a lot of fun. In the number 3 spot, we have the Old Fashioned. This hand cannon is a 140 RPM hand cannon that bridges the gap between the 140 and the 110 solely because of the existence of the Kill Clip perk. As we just went over with Positive Outlook, Kill Clip gives a bonus 33% damage after killing a target and reloading. It also has accurized rounds and drop mag. You would think drop mag synergizes more with Kill Clip, and it does, but I much prefer extra range on hand cannons. When compared to Better Devils, even using its max range on the Old Fashioned, it still lacks 2 meters on the 4-tap potential. And speaking of potential, the reason that the Old Fashioned makes it to the number 3 spot is because of its potential to wipe an entire team. It is the best flanking weapon, because as soon as you get a kill, you can reload, activate Kill Clip, and absolutely decimate somebody.
Entirely love base, I know it's just selfish, but it works. Dynamics. I'm about to get out the art. Let's go with it. That was a nutty shot. I went for it, got it. What? See you in the montage.
As you can tell by my teammate's clip, as long as you have a steady hand and can hit most of your shots, you will tear some people up, even if you miss the headshot. Because with Kill Clip, it's 1 headshot, 2 body shots, or alternatively, if they're at a really far distance, it makes it damage more, so the potential to 3-tap somebody, you can basically cross-map them. That's all I'm getting at. So while without Kill Clip, the Old Fashioned is pretty average, it's semi-spammable, but if you're gonna spam somebody, why not just use the Dire Promise? Kill Clip makes this gun. And seeing as Kill Clip is activated by reloads, go for Ophidian Aspects, kinetic reload mods, anything you can do to make that reload a little bit faster so you can get back in the action even quicker with enhanced damage. Come on dude, you didn't think a pulse rifle would make the list? Shame on you. The Darkest Before melts. You see, in the number 2 spot, we have the Darkest Before. Its perks: full auto trigger system, exactly what it says, slide shot, which partially reloads, adding range and stability, and quick draw, which improves handling, just like we talked about with Home for the Lost. I'm also going to note that instead of sights, it sports ballistics, which means the recoil pattern can change based on which ballistic you choose and prefer. And its sight, despite not mentioning it, actually highlights targets. That's very, very useful. The gun shoots 540 rounds per minute and is considered a rapid frame pulse, which means when you empty the magazine, it reloads faster. I would treat this gun like you would treat a Clever Dragon from Destiny 1. It is so spammable, so forgiving, and its perks are some of the best in the entire game. Full auto just helps it be that much more spammy. Look at this shit. It is nonsense how good this gun is. This gun is so stupid. I mentioned it earlier. This gun is one of the choice guns to use in competitive Destiny. This is a scrim match in the background where I abuse both the Old Fashioned and Darkest Before. Besides range, and even then, I guess you could make an argument against it, this gun has everything. It is spammable because of easy recoil control and a fast rate of fire. Reload doesn't matter because of its frame, its rapid fire frame. You might as well empty the magazine if you're going to go for a reload anyhow. Quick draw negates all handling negatives of this archetype. And you could even go further and go Ophidian Aspects plus Slide Shot to again make up for never having to reload since you got Slide Shot active. Range not being an issue as much because Slide Shot activates and boosts the range. Just there are so many combinations of how you can run this gun to make it completely negate any sense of balancing Bungie has put on this archetype of pulse rifle. When the new balancing patch rolls around, I expect this gun to be running rampant. Absolutely wild. If I haven't sold you on this gun by now, take it for a spin and see firsthand just how powerful it is. In the number 1 spot, we have the Antiope-D. Every single day that passes, this gun becomes more prevalent and used and abused in the Crucible. And it's a lot of factors that add to this, but essentially the gun is a submachine gun that wasn't told it's actually an auto rifle. And here are the perks that contribute to this madness. Kill Clip. Again, you know what it does, 33% bonus damage after a reload. Ricochet rounds, the hidden rangefinder, and the bullets bounce off surfaces so you can kill people around corners. An iron sight or a hollow scope on a submachine gun, so a medium zoom scope on a submachine gun. The reason that you would consider using a medium zoom scope on a submachine gun is the fact the Antiope-D is a precision frame submachine gun, meaning the recoil is vertical, up and down, very little horizontal, makes it very easy to control, so using a medium zoom scope on something that has virtually no recoil is a very viable option. Though I sometimes stray away from the medium zoom scope, opting for the short range scope because I feel like the medium zoom scope takes a little bit more flinch than the short zoom. But don't let that deter you from going medium zoom scope because it absolutely melts regardless of what your scope choice is. So here's the dilemma with the Antiope and why it sort of breaks the balance of submachine guns and even auto rifles and hand cannons. I listed the strengths. Let's list the weaknesses of the Antiope. 1. Its handling is poor. But why does handling matter if you always have the gun out? Why would you switch weapons? Like on this map, why would I switch to another weapon if Antiope can safely cover the same distance? And we're done listing weaknesses of the Antiope-D, so you can see the dilemma already. It has almost no weaknesses. If for some reason you doubt me when I bring all this up, take this 600 RPM monster into the Crucible and try it out for yourself. If you're wondering where you can obtain this weapon, you have to get lucky with the gunsmith. If for some reason your RNG is terrible, you can receive the rare version of this gun, which is essentially the same thing, from the side quest mission, Failsafe on Nessus. And that pretty much wraps up my video, so I'm gonna mention the honorable mention weapons that didn't make the list, but were damn close, and with a simple balancing patch, could probably change this list entirely and make it on. So we have Vigilance Wing, Nightshade, Better Devils, The Conqueror, Allegro, Midnight Coup, and Risk Runner. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comment section if you enjoyed it, if your list is different than mine, if you agree, disagree with my explanations of guns, or if you just want some clarification. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll be continuing to stream on Twitch this week, trying to get that partnership. So I'd really appreciate it if you head down to twitch.tv/thecamicakes, no spaces, and attempt to catch me when I'm live. Stop by, say hi, drop a follow. But yeah, video is pretty much over, so thank you so much for watching. You really are the best.